we should be good to go. If anybody runs into any technical difficulties or you're not hearing me, send in a message and I'll open up the control panel again and take a look. Anyway, thanks again for joining us to this webcast. This is EXIM Online Essentials for Insurance Brokers. This is the first of this kind of webinar and one in what we hope will be a series that we'll be delivering over time. This particular webcast, the target audience are relatively new users of EOL, EXIM Online, or very new users, or those who don't use it that frequently, but we're looking for sort of a general refresh. So we're not going to take the time to dive into all aspects of EOL. That's just more than we have time for I think people can digest. I think we'll probably end up going about 45 minutes or so to complete this. So it's a general overview of EXIM Online, its key functionalities and other information that brokers should know before they even start to go into EXIM Online. You should also know that there are already 2 webinars on EXIM Bank's webpage, one of which, and it's under the Learning Resources tab, one of which goes over the Express application and another one that goes over the single buyer application. Now, those webcasts were done close to 2 years ago, so EXIM Online will look a little bit different in those webinars, but I'm told that for the most part, not much has changed. So if you're looking for a fairly intensive dive into those application processes, I suggest you check those out, and sometime, hopefully in the near future, we'll be able to update those to show the latest and greatest from EXIM Online. You can send in your questions. Because we have a fairly large number of folks on the call, we're going to ask you to send in your questions in writing using the question tab, which hopefully you can see on your screen. We won't be opening it up for questions, but we will be looking for questions from time to time on the screen. As I mentioned, hopefully this is being recorded and will be posted on the website. And then lastly, before we get started, you should receive after the webinar an email with a link to a 30-second multiple choice question survey on the webinar, and we would ask you to take 30 seconds to answer those questions. It'll help us in designing future webinars of this kind going forward. Okay, I have with me also, just so you know, some technical backup assistance here. Lindsay Grant is here from Multi-Buyer Underwriting, and Lauren Kirsch, who's our internal guru on all things EXIM Online. So I may be referring to them from time to time for some assistance or correction, and also ask them to chime in if they think I'm missing something key or have misstated something, as I'm also still getting used to EXIM Online myself. Okay, so this is what we're going to cover in this webinar. It's basically the various products that you can access on EXIM Online, EOL's basic functionalities, sort of key account maintenance best practices, how you get an EOL account, who to contact at EXIM Bank for various situations that may arise, tips for navigating the system, how to actually access EXIM Online, and importantly, how to help your client create its own user account, and then how a broker gets associated with an exporter's account. And then we'll close with sort of a high-level overview of the various links on the broker's landing page. So as you know, EXIM Online is a web-based application and policy management system. And here you can see the URL, which we suggest you store in your favorites. And if you choose not to, we'll show you a little bit later how you can actually find it on the website. So the various suite of products that you can access on EXIM Online are shown here. All of the insurance products can be done on the system, including all multi-buyer, single buyer, financial institution buyer credit, letter of credit, and even medium-term insurance and medium-term bank guarantees, although we'll be focusing in this webinar just on the insurance and probably with a bias towards the multi-buyer product specifically. So EOL is a comprehensive platform that enables brokers and your clients to manage their Ex-Im Bank business from the front end to the back end and everything in between. I won't read off all the different functionalities here, but all the way from obtaining a letter of interest and submitting an application to filing a claim. So all of those things can be done on the system. A couple of best practices to keep in mind when using Ex-Im Online. Each broker agency can have multiple EOL registered users. We do ask, though, that each registered user submit a copy of the standards of professional conduct and service and a copy of the resident license. This is a new requirement. It's not something we're going to go back and ask for from existing brokers, but only brokers going forward. Each user will get its own unique user ID and password. And while we don't prohibit it, we do strongly advise against the sharing of IDs and passwords. And the reason is that EOL will assume that any activity done on EOL is being done by the person who accessed EOL using a particular ID and password. And if for some reason, whether it's in a claim situation or otherwise, there's a need to go back and reconstruct what happened, it could get rather confusing, and there may, in worst case scenario, potentially be issues. Again, we don't prohibit it, but we would advise against it when at all possible. And finally, when a new account is being set up, we do need to hear from the quote-unquote primary contact who set up the brokerage and registered it with us on whether or not that particular new or additional EOL user should have commission viewing rights. We will need to know that before we can set up the account. That is something that the primary contact will have control over. I'm just going to open up the control panel here briefly and see if there are any questions. I don't think there are. Fine. Okay. Apologies for that. So just by way of background, how does a brokerage get an EOL account? Well, they have to register, as you know, as an Ex-Im Bank broker and submit a number of materials that comprise the application, and those are identified here. And once we've processed that documentation and we're satisfied that it's appropriate to register the broker, you'll get an email from Chantel Bragg, to which will be attached a registration letter, which will be addressed to the primary contact. That would be the person who submitted the application materials. And it will contain the brokerage's registration number, as well as various other requirements related to training and utilization and production and so on and so forth. In that email from Chantel, she will provide instructions to contact her so that a user ID and password can be set up for that particular individual or any other individuals who will need accounts at that time. Also, one thing to keep in mind is that some brokerages do have a presence in multiple locations, and in some cases, that brokerage firm may want Ex-Im's commissions to be paid directly and independently to each separate office, and we can do that, but in order for that to happen, each branch office needs to register separately in its own name and get its own broker registration number. So the process that we just described in the previous two slides would apply to each of those offices. Otherwise, the firm only needs to register once, and commissions will be paid pursuant to the direct deposit instructions that we received at the time that the broker was registered. Okay, a number of situations will arise from time to time where you'll need to contact somebody at Ex-Im Bank. And here are some of those situations and the persons or people that you should contact. I already mentioned Chantel, who is sort of the pivot point for the registration of new brokers and the establishment of the initial EOL account. She would also be the point of contact if you want to add new EOL users. If, for example, new employees come into the firm. Would ask that you also copy me in those situations, because I'm trying to keep a master list of all of the brokers who are registered and using Ex-Im Bank's products and services. If there's a need to deactivate an EOL user, you can do that as well. For example, if an employee leaves the firm, in that case, you can contact the email address shown here, which we say BAPIMT, and also copy me. There are folks there who are experts on managing the system and can do that for you very quickly. And conversely, if you need to reactivate an Ex-Im Bank Ex-Im Online user, who, for whatever reason, was deactivated. That can also be done, and you should also direct that to BAPIMT. You can also reset your passwords by communicating with BAPIMT, although there is a forgot your password link on the login page, and it's probably easier and faster for you to use that rather than to send emails to BAPIMT, although that is an option. We do ask folks not to create multiple accounts for the same person using different user IDs and passwords. We've seen some situations where one broker had 8 to 10 different accounts, which is A, unnecessary, but B, also creates a lot of confusion when things go wrong and we have to dive into the system and try and correct it. So please, let's try and stick to one account per person. And if you've forgotten your user ID, again, you can also contact BAPIMT as well. A couple basic tips for when you're using EOL. You'll see these buttons on a number of the screens throughout the platform, and you should use them to move forward, backwards, or to save information or to continue. Don't use your browser arrows at the top of your screen, as they may or probably will kick you out of the system and you may need to log back in. And you also risk losing information that you've already entered. All transactions that take place within EOL are given a tracking number, and all communications by yourselves to Ex-Im Bank should include those tracking numbers to help identify the specific transaction or policy that you're communicating with about. And those tracking numbers will also appear in all of the automated messages that come out of the EOL system to you. Okay, talk about accessing EOL. It is accessible on the web page through the Tools for Exporters link, which will reveal these series of links, and you can log into Ex-Im Online by clicking on the Ex-Im Online login link. And this is what will come up when you log into the home page. Before we sort of dive into some live demonstration of Ex-Im Online, a couple things to be on the lookout for when you first open up the login page. One is you may from time to time see some messaging in red at the top of the screen. That will typically be there for one of two reasons. Either the system will be down for maintenance for whatever reason, which will typically happen during non-business working hours and therefore should not affect you, but you would want to be aware of that. Or there may be some updates and enhancements or improvements to EOL, in which case there'll be a notification about that, and typically or often a link to detailed information about those changes and improvements. To the extent that it's appropriate and necessary, we'll certainly try and alert you to those ahead of time, so you don't necessarily have to learn about them for the first time by logging into EOL. Also, we mentioned that there is a Forgot Your Password link on the login page, and that's where it is. I'm not going to open it up here right now, but you can certainly do that. It's say simpler than calling or emailing someone at Ex-Im Bank to take care of it for you. Okay, that was sort of the introduction that we're wanted to go through to orient you to some of the basics on Ex-Im Online. Now I want to turn to how to help you create an EOL account and how to associate your firm with the account. So give me a moment here. I'm going to switch to the Ex-Im Online test system. So this is the login screen. I just happen to be in the test environment right now, but it otherwise will look and feel the way it does to you as the broker when you're using it. So if you want to help your customers create an account, you'll see the link down here towards the bottom of the middle of the screen where it says register for a user account. Fairly straightforward. And so you'll click on that. And before continuing, we'll need to agree to the disclosure and privacy information related to that. Of course, we will agree to that. So the first question is, does your company already have an Ex-Im Online account? In this case, it does not. So we're setting up a new account. So we want to make sure that this is clicked no. And then we will press continue. And here, this will take you to the screen where you enter the basic information. I'm actually going to take a minute here now to try and do this. So if you'll bear with me, I'll make up a company name. Sounds like a Mexican company. You will need to enter your 9-digit DUNS number, so make sure you have that before the company, you have the company's DUNS number before you start this process. And I'll just make one up. And you will need to choose your NAICS code as well. And this link here will take you to a master list. And we'll try and find something fairly innocuous here. I'll do baked goods stores. So we've entered all that information and we'll press continue. And that will take you to the next screen, which will enable you to set up the user ID, a password, which you'll need to re-enter to confirm that, and to enter the primary contact information and choose a challenge question in the event that you need to contact Ex-Im Bank for assistance or are resetting your password. I won't enter all that information right now, but once you do that, you'll be taken to a screen that will tell you that you have successfully created an account, and there will be a link there that will enable you to log into the account and begin using it right away. Okay, I'm going to stop and open up the control panel to see if at this point we have any questions. I don't see any, so I'm going to keep going. I'm now going to go into the exporter view so we can see how to associate a broker with a particular exporter's account. So to do that, I'm just going to go back out of this. So once they've entered the user ID and password, they'll also come to this screen where they'll need to agree to the privacy issues, and they'll be taken to their own home landing page. And what you'll discover as we go through the rest of this webinar is that the exporter's landing page looks very, very similar to your own landing page. There are very few differences. The principal one probably being that on the exporter's homepage, on the lower right-hand corner here, there'll be a link to maintain broker, and that's the link that we'll actually use to help link the broker to the account. Whereas in the same place on the broker page, you will have a link to broker commission information. Otherwise, for the most part, they look and very similar. And as you work through Ex-Im Online, the experience from the exporters and the broker's viewpoint will be very similar, if not identical. So in order to associate a broker with an exporter's account, we'll check on the Maintain Broker tab, and this will take us to this screen. You'll see at the bottom of this screen, brokers who are already associated with this particular exporter's account will appear at the bottom. You'll have the opportunity to view them or remove them if you so choose. We said we were adding a new broker. So to do that, you'll click on this drop down, which will give you a list of all of the Ex-Im Bank registered brokers. And you would click on the appropriate one. Let me see, maybe we can, there's a test broker one. So anyway, I won't use a specific one, but if you, all you have to do is select that one, press the Add Broker tab, and it will then appear in the screen at the bottom of the screen below and be added to the list of existing brokers. So that is how you associate the broker with the account. How you associate a broker with a particular application for a policy is done in the actual application process, and we'll touch on that a little bit later. So now I'm going to go to the broker's landing page. I'm going to log out and log back in as the broker. So here's the broker's landing page, and as you can see, it looks very, very similar to the exporter's page. The primary difference being this broker commission link here. So let me just walk you through different parts of this home page, and then we'll walk through some of the actual links and the functionalities. Let me point out a couple of things. You'll see here, although it's partially now obscured by the control panel feature, my profile link, and that will take you to, there's also my company profile link down here, and that will take you to basic identity information about you and your company. There's also a link here where you can change your password if after having logged in you wish to do so, and the experts recommend that you do change passwords from time to time, but that's obviously up to you. You'll also see the name of your brokerage and the primary contact here. And one thing I want to point out, which I think is probably an underutilized feature of XM Online, is this customer service tab on the upper right-hand screen. If you press on that, you'll see that it will take you to a comprehensive database of instructions and information on all aspects of XM Online. Just about any question you would have about what to do and how to do it on XM Online is probably answered somewhere in this database. As you can see on the left-hand side, it's broken up into specific categories. So if you're looking for guidance related to the registration and account maintenance, it will open up a series of subcategories, each of which you can open up. And as you open up each link, the content associated with that link will appear on the right-hand side of the screen. Open up another one or two for an example. Probably a more important one, the application submission. Again, here there's a link associated with each application and a series of further links that will give you additional guidance associated with any aspect of the application process. General questions, access rights, products, what have you. So it's potentially a very, very useful tool. And my recommendation to yourselves is to get some familiarity with that, so you have an idea of where to navigate to when you're looking for answers to your questions. And hopefully for you, it'll be a more satisfying experience to be able to solve those problems and answer those questions yourselves and have to pick up the phone or send an email to somebody. Of course, you can always do that, but as I say, there's a wealth of information here that you can access. And we'll press on the Home tab to go back to our home screen. Okay, I'm going to use the rest of the time on this webinar to walk through most of this landing page for the brokers, to say we'll open up some of these and we'll dive into them a little bit, but we just don't have the time to go into all of them. We will be developing additional webinars going forward that will be devoted to more discrete, focused parts of the XM Online platform. But let's approach this from a somewhat logical standpoint. I'm starting with what might be the first step before you apply for an insurance policy, which is to apply for a letter of interest. A letter of interest is basically a letter that you can generate automatically online. That's a general indication of XM Bank's willingness to support a particular transaction, and you do it by clicking on that particular link. We're not going to go too far into this process. This will take you to an off-site website. You should be able to get in using the same login that you used. Oh, I'm being told this is actually going to change.
You can come into XM Online by the end of the summer.
Oh, okay. So this is going to be changing, but in case you need one,
yeah.
You know, within the next couple months, I'll give you a glimpse as to what's involved. We won't go into all of it in detail. So we'll take you to this page, And you'll see down here, where there was a link under Forms to Letter of Interest Application. And you can click on that and open a new form. And here we'll give you some guidance and instructions about letters of interest. Some of the key factors that you'd want to know about that. There is a refundable $50 application fee. They're generally issued within 7 business days. They're valid for up to 6 months and can be renewed. Anyway, something useful to know when your customer is looking for support for a transaction and would like to present some indication of Ex-Im Bank's willingness to consider that type of support. I'm going to X out of that. Okay, and I've X'd myself out of the test environment. Apologies for that. So let me go back into that. So here we are back to the landing page. So after you have a letter of interest, then the next logical step would be to apply for an insurance policy. And this is something that you can initiate on behalf of your exporter if you're already associated with that particular exporter's account. If not, the exporter would need to start the application, associate you with that application, the account if not already, and the application, and then you will be able to continue to work on the application for the exporter. So if you click on that tab, it will take you to the list of companies who you have access to. In this case, we have one, and it's called the test company. The next screen will invite you to select the type of policy that you want to apply for. And let's select a short-term multi-buyer. Continue. It will take you to this screen, which will give the option of applying either for an express policy or for one of the other multi-buyer, small business or standard multi-buyer policies. There are links here to fact sheets, which really take you to links on our Ex-Im Bank website. Personally, I don't find the information there add a lot of value, but if you're interested, you can explore that. Let's dive just a little bit deeper into the application process to see what that starts to look like, and then we'll move on. So let's start an express application. So when you do that, you'll come to this initial page, which will take you to some general instructions and guidance on how to approach the completion of the application. You'll see a link here to the country limitation schedule, which, as you hopefully know, is a comprehensive list of all of the countries where Ex-Im Bank is open for business, depending on the type of product and any special conditions that may be placed on that particular product. You'll see on the right-hand side of the screen the various sections of the application itself. These can be completed in any sequence. They do not have to be completed in any particular order. And as you complete each section, a check mark will appear under the Done column here. And so you'll know you're ready to submit and everything's complete when you have check marks next to all of these entries, and then you can submit the application. Let's go one step further. So I didn't click on company info. I clicked continue, which takes you then to the first section of the application form. And here you'll enter basic information that Ex-Im Bank requests to help keep track of certain statistics. It will have the applicant's primary contact information. And here, with respect to a multi-buyer application, this is where a broker can be added to a particular policy. In this case, we're already associated with the account and with this policy, and so we have appeared here. So I'll stop there. I won't continue. The process is fairly intuitive. As I say, going forward, we'll provide webinars, in addition to the one that's on the website right now, that will go into more detail about the application process for the various types of products. So I'm going to go back to the home screen now. And so we have filed our application, and it's been approved. And we want to act on our quote. In this case, the test environment has been set up, so I don't have anything to show you, but it will present a screen that will enable you to review and choose to accept or decline the quote. And once the policy has been issued, you can then also look at policies in force or recently expired. Unfortunately, our system's been a bit slow this afternoon, so my apologies for that. So here we have one policy that's been bound with our test company. You click on the policy number on the left-hand side. I think I'm going to have to avoid clicking on too many links or this webinar will be longer than we expected. So, so this will take you to sort of the home screen for that particular policy. It will have basic information about the customer at the top, about the key parameters associated with that particular policy over here on the top left. It'll list any endorsements, SPCLs, IBCLs, pending applications, and any saved or not submitted applications. You'll also see up here on the upper right-hand side various links to perform various functions associated with that particular policy, whether it's to amend a policy, to submit an SPCL application, view policy documents, or whatnot.
That's a good one too, when the customers want to review, their policy, their compliance, particularly endorsements, the view policy documents, where they can be directed to see that.
Well, let's click on that one. We'll see if we have any
Okay.
associated with this particular policy. Well, we do.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like the SPCL.
Right. So the general terms and conditions. For example, what that would look like. I believe the declarations typically appear as a separate document or not. Not sure.
It's right there, the declaration.
Yeah,
Second one.
this looks like it's for a different
Yeah.
policy type. Look at one more. Look at the SPCL Belgium. Okay, so good advice from our underwriter there. Thank you.
I check it a lot, so.
Okay. Let's go back then to the landing page. Let's go through a few more of these. I think we've already gone on longer because of our delay than we had originally intended to. You saw in that screen that we just looked at that you can apply for an SPCL. There's also a separate link up here where you can do that, as well as for an IBCL, in the case of a bank. There are separate tabs where, let's say, you've got an issued policy and you now want to report some shipments. You can open the Report Shipments tab. That will bring up the policies that you have with the various companies, and you can click on the policy number. And the first thing you'll have to do here is click one of these options with respect to the status of overdue receivables. I'm not going to dive too far into this one, but I think Lindsay knows this part of it pretty well. Let's go a little bit further. Now we'll open up this page here where you can see basic policy parameters at the top. It will show you existing buyers who have SPCLs. It will enable you to search for or add a new buyer using the filter tabs here.
Your DCLs will also show up.
And DCLs as well. And at the bottom of the page is where you would enter the details you would need in order to add a particular shipment. Again, I won't go into that level of detail for this purpose, but just to give you a flavor for what it looks like and how it works. And of course, there are some additional tabs on the upper and right side of the screen. New or saved shipments, report no shipments, review pending, view pending review shipments. I'm going to go back again. Actually, let's just go back to the home page. I would point out that if you have started an application and you saved it, you can always go back and restart it or finish it by clicking on this particular tab here, continue a saved application. You can also make a payment here. Of course, when I say you, I mean you and the exporter with respect to premium. And in the worst case scenario, you can also file a claim. Okay. Apologies for the delay here. I hope this doesn't mean it's a very busy part of the Exim Online platform. Unfortunately, last time this happened, I wasn't able to back out of it. I have to wait for it to finish. But it did finish. There we go. So you can initiate a claim here. You'd enter the relevant information with respect to the policy, or check the policy down below, and you can either view a claim or you can file a claim. Okay, I don't want to get us caught in that warp too many more times. So let me just point out a couple more final items. Over here on the right side of the page under miscellaneous are some useful tabs. We already mentioned company profile. You can look at your historical transactions. Fairly comprehensive dump of return transactions, withdrawn, canceled, denied, expired, as well as policies in force. In this case, we have the one here at the bottom of the screen. And I think I'll do two more. One would be broker commissions, obviously of interest to everyone here. Click on that. It will take you to the screen where you can search for your commissions by a particular month and by a particular year, and it will produce some results. You can also click on the view statement or view activity icons, and you will be able to drill down deeper into a higher level of detail into premium on a policy by policy basis. So let me finish with the search portfolio, which I think is a very useful aspect of Exim Online. And here you'll see that we've got the capability to search all of your policies across a number of different general categories, whether it's applications, quotes, policies, shipments, premiums, overdues, claims. Let's click on some of these to see the options available. So under applications here, you could start a new application, you can withdraw one, you can look at the saved applications, you can look at quotes that you're waiting acceptance, you can look at your enforced policies, policies that are canceled or expired, and so on and so forth. And you can then, after you click on one of these, use these filters here to drill down even further and get closer to the specific information that you're looking for. So we've actually gone on a little bit longer than we had originally intended, but I'm going to stop there. I'm going to go back to the broker homepage. I'm going to open up the control panel. I'm going to see if there are any questions. Unfortunately, if you can, and I think you can see the screen, it will show who's asking the question, if I'm not mistaken. And I hope you don't mind. Let's see. Here's a question here. D&B number is required to. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to open this up.
You don't know, Dave?
Do you have a question?
Oh, yeah, I
Yeah.
have.
Yeah. Sorry, we're going to try to open up the question so we can read it.
There's a way you can bring this over to here.
Yes.
Yeah. You can open this up. You double click it.
Here, or
Yeah.
there?
Well, if you click on one, you see it below.
Oh, okay. So I guess that's.
But there's a way to pull it over here.
Okay. Maybe this is not so much a question, but a comment. Let's see. That a D&B number is required to submit an application. Okay. Okay, here's a request to spend some time on managing the policy. I'm not sure if there's a specific part of the application that the questioner had in mind. I assume that the questioner is referring to this part of the screen. We can do that. I don't want to spend too much more time going into this because, again, we're going to be developing additional webinars that will dive into various aspects of this. We found that if these goes on too long, people start to tune out or they just don't listen. So we touched on report shipments. Click on make a payment, but in this particular case, in the test environment, I'm not sure we're going to get the true experience here. No transactions available. Let me go back. Report overdues. You have a transaction number. Basic policy information will appear at the top. And then you'll be asked to identify the overdue buyer or borrower.
I could make a comment.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly where it's done. I guess view update overdues. The user, the broker, or the customer can get in and provide kind of an ongoing update, which is very useful for us, both updating the amount due and setting it to 0 when it finally is completely repaid. Or I've had customers that make comments. I don't know exactly where, but they were getting in and commenting every month what the status was, which is probably a good way to manage the policy actively.
Well, thank you. I just clicked on the view and update the overdues tab here.
I guess once one's there, yeah, they can do it.
So this is the information that you'd be asked to enter. touched on file a claim. I don't want to do that one again because that went on too long. I won't touch on maintain letters of interest. It's not something that's done or used very often. Click on amend a policy.
Oh, so I just wanted to say that everything you saw on the left, all those links, amend a policy, report a shipment, report it overdue, you can do from that side, but also they're available on the right side when you select your policy as those quick links that Ed showed earlier when we were looking at policy docs. So there's two ways to get to functionality. So it just depends if you want to go directly in and to the left and select make report a shipment or report it overdue, or to the right, you're looking at your policy details, and then from there, all those same quick links are available. So just wanted to point out from either side of the landing page, you have the same functionality available to you.
Thanks, Lauren. Very good point. So this was the amend policy, and it's not going to let me do anything because we're in a particular test environment and the information is not there. So let me go back to the questions because I want to stop there. As I say, we've gone on for a while here. Let me look and see. Okay, I don't see anything else to be answered here. So with that, I'm going to close the webinar. Thank you for your patience in our slightly delayed start. Do take some time to answer the 30-second survey. Hopefully you'll get that via email because we do want to benefit from the insights you can provide and how to make these webinars more useful going forward. As I said, we are developing additional webinars and additional manuals to accompany these webinars going forward with the idea that over time we'll develop a comprehensive inventory of both online and offline tools that will tell you everything you need to know about Ex-Im Online and Ex-Im Bank. So thank you very much for your attendance. And if anyone has a question and they want to contact me offline, please feel free to do that. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.